HPE Discover Las Vegas 2025. I'm your host, Keith Townsend, joined with my fabulous host, co-host, David Nicholson. Dave, it's been a fabulously incredible set of conversations this week.
Yeah, it has been. It has been. All, I think, trying to get to the bottom of what the people who we care about, which is how do I save money and or make money with AI? Where do I get started? Do you think that any of the keynote or anything that we've seen so far has kind of gotten us closer to that?
So
that answer?
I think the consistent answer across all of the folks we've talked to, whether it's been this week or over the past few months, has been baby steps. There's no revelations, there's no magic bullets. It's been, you know what, people process technology, like,
Right.
data.
Right.
Where's your data? Are you going to bring your AI to your data to your AI? I think it's safe to say we're not bringing our our data to the AI. Hybrid cloud is a thing. It's cool again.
Yes, always has been cool. I know, Keith. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Hybrid Cloud himself.
Some of us called it.
It's
true. At the start of the thing, I talked to an engineer who was telling me that all this is really advanced stuff, but he's worried about his VM landscape. He runs JD Edwards.
Right.
And the manufacturing company, mission critical stuff. And this show, I think, more so than anyone, HPE is the creator of the Superdome. So there's people coming here who are worried about their stuff running non-stop. And there's customers here looking to access that stuff to build agentic AI workflows.
Yeah, it's funny. I never made the connection between Superdome and Sphere until just now. That's so true.
I didn't either until you just said.
But I think back to the hybrid cloud. We've seen this over and over again. Oftentimes, history will align itself favorably for certain tech companies, and I would argue that there was a time when the argument for hybrid cloud was almost desperation from some of these players as they saw all of those workloads migrating to cloud. There's always been a case for private cloud, hybrid cloud, but today I think in particular, they really made the case, and we've seen this over the last few weeks in particular, talking to folks, on-premises inference as an example. The fact that data is so important and data sovereignty, security, are you really going to fine-tune a model in the cloud with the crown jewels of your business? So I think they really made the case for hybrid cloud, and it's interesting to see what they're doing in the hybrid cloud space for sure.
You know what, not only did they make the case for hybrid cloud, I think most people would have admitted over the past few years that hybrid cloud, even since AI, is the way of the future, but the software stack has not caught up,
right,
kept up, and the culture hasn't. HPE has been investing in GreenLake hybrid cloud since about 2018, 2019, when we all kind of raised the eyebrow.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of that desperation moment.
Yep.
Like, can they do it?
Yep.
How would you assess their modern capabilities around the software piece of it?
Huge advances, huge advances. Yeah, I don't think I ever said this publicly, but somebody says Green Lake, I'm like, sounds like a nice blue lake full of algae to me. It doesn't sound like anything I'm interested in.
Right.
Oh, you're going to build a cloud because you do on-premises? Well, guess what? All that work they did aligned them being HPE, perfectly for what we need today. So the idea of being able to take a multi-vendor environment and actually get things integrated, the focus on networking, which is so critical. If you don't have the networking piece taken care of, how do you go in and share knowledge and data, expose that to AI via fine-tuning or RAG or combinations of all of it? So, no, I've been impressed favorably by what I see. I know I'm skeptical, as you are, on some of these things. I want to see it in action. I've had some pretty good inside peeks with folks here, and what I see is that they're absolutely on the right track.
Yeah, and the vision, I think, is really solid. The HPE GreenLake intelligence Green Lake Intelligence, I think
Yep,
it was called.
yep, yep.
Vision is right there.
Yep.
This idea that I can have agents for each one of my silos that can optimize the infrastructure, that
Yes.
can, from a cost perspective, performance, reliability, preemptive maintenance, etc. And then I have one screen to with MCP sharing data in between the agents
Yep.
to actually control my environment. The vision, outstanding. Maturity, I think, is a question I would like to ask you about. You talk to a ton of folks in your cohort. Is this something that they have asked for or even want?
I'm not sure that most people have the sophistication to ask for this, but honestly, I think that folks are a little overwhelmed with all of the developments that keep coming at them so quickly. I think that this story, when told properly, should hit really well, should resonate really well, especially with, I mean, if you look back, it seems like weeks ago, we were getting announcements around DeepSeek and what are they doing, and oh, maybe little models are better, maybe you divide and conquer. Well, this is exactly that, and it makes perfect sense. And frankly, on the sort of vision versus execution side of things, I think anyone who is willing to get started today, I think the execution will be ready as soon as they are. So I think HPE is going to be ready with every single thing that they talked about today, probably earlier than the average customer can deploy it.
So I talked about, the people we care about, the people we talk to. The people we care about and talk to, they're still struggling with the changes happening over at Broadcom and VMware.
Yeah.
And I think there's no one-for-one replacement for vSphere, but I don't think HPE was shy at all. They may not outright mention VMware, but there was undertones about Broadcom and VMware this whole week.
Every time I hear a mention of networking and how important it is, I'm thinking NSX.
NSX.
And then the question that I ask many, many times, my friend, which is, well, what exactly is the penetration rate of NSX? NSX has been a challenge for VMware customers. And that's such a critical component, especially when you talk about AI, especially when you talk about sharing knowledge, sharing content. And so, no, they're not shying away from it. It's going to be a world of co-opetition, though, for as far as we can see into the future. It's really going to be interesting to see. I know we both have passionate feelings about, how much effort somebody should put into transmogrifying their hypervisorial environment.
Right.
But
how much time am I going to spend on solving this solved problem?
yeah, if you're a CIO and your CEO says, "What's our AI strategy?" and you say, "Oh, I'm going to switch hypervisors," well, you're fired, because that's right. But the reality is, it is critically important. It's just like the thing I love about this conference, frankly, and HPE, being a knuckle dragging storage and infrastructure guy, is that infrastructure is really important. It's really, really important. And they're free to acknowledge it here. And especially on that data front, where if you don't have your infrastructure ducks in a row, you're not going to be able to leverage AI. Don't even try. Don't even bother if you're not going to take care of that infrastructure.
So more stuff that we care about. Gen 12 servers have arrived. The audience actually clapped for the AMD announcements. The 385 is here.
Yep.
Epic. How important is this diversity and options in the latest and greatest HPE generation of servers?
Yeah, I think it's important. I think that HPE needs to be one of those Switzerlands when it comes to CPU, GPU, DPU, XPU choice. They should be solving for whatever the workload demands, whatever the use case is. Obviously, NVIDIA is dominating this space. I've been very public about saying that I think that is going to be a short-lived dominance. It's not going to be the 30-year dominance that Intel enjoyed. They're under assault from all sorts of different directions. And I think a company like HPE is perfectly positioned to take advantage of that for themselves while delivering value to their customers. So I think it's all good. I don't buy into the let's be dismissive of AMD. I think that's kind of a cheap shot. I think that they absolutely have a place in this game. We don't know. I mean, look at where we've come from. This huge focus on training is shifting over to inference. All of a sudden, people are like, do I even need GPUs for that at all? So this game has just begun.
So you're a old school storage guy, and there was a big storage announcement, but it wasn't about speeds and feeds.
No.
No, the Alletra MPX10000, the story was about AI pipeline and this ability to use MCP on the storage array. I don't know if there's other vendors out there promoting MCP on the storage array right now, but MCP is all the rage. What did you think of the storage announcement?
I think it's interesting. I was struck by the fact that speeds and feeds are not part of the equation. We just assume that someone like an HPE is going to be able to put storage together with the proper media, whatever kind of solid state or spinning media it is, all the varying flavors and sizes. So we assume they're going to get the tiering down, the performance is good enough. I'm curious about what those pipelines look like exactly. I get the whole MCP thing. I totally buy into the idea of having specific bespoke models that can reach out through RAG to be enhanced constantly for observability, security, et cetera, et cetera. I'm a little unclear on the storage side what those pipelines look like, but I think it's critically important to, just like networking, to include your storage infrastructure under the AI umbrella and sort of infuse it with AI. It sounds like you're AI washing your storage, but I think there's a there that we should really track.
Yeah, I haven't quite worked it out in my architect's brain how you provide data services from unstructured data at the storage array into pipelines that go to different applications, etc. I'm sure people smarter than me, HPE, have thought this out. I'm looking forward to those questions. I think we actually going to interview one of the folks from the storage team.
Yeah.
But before we go to that, let's talk about the thing that gets the headlines, which is the big AI factory stuff. What, if anything, did you get that was differentiated from other OEM AI factory stores?
I think, I think the devil's going to be in the details. And I think that different OEMs are going to have different sweet spots where the decisions they've made about form factors, air cooling versus direct liquid cooling, they're all going to come into play. And I think that there are some unintended consequences associated with the engineering decisions that HPE and its competitors have made that are going to separate one OEM from another in terms of where the best fit for function is. And I think it's hard to predict. I'll give you a solid example of that. Looking at some server architectures and whether or not they allow certain storage controllers to fit in the chassis. And so if you have a controller that's designed to deliver functionality in an AI space, but the designated AI server from that company doesn't allow you to plug that card into a slot, there's a mismatch there. And so I think that a lot of those things are going to come to light over the next 6, 12, 18 months. And I think we're going to see some differentiation in architectural designs happen that are more informed instead of just sort of, we think this is the best solution. And then, of course, the question of cooling and power is going to be huge.
I think this is one of those examples where, one of those rare examples, where the technology is really trailing the adoption. Where I'm sorry, the technology is really ahead of the adoption. We're still waiting for customers to have this big point of inferencing, and where the adoption for consuming LLMs is happening, where this will be placed, we just don't know yet.
Yeah.
But we will know more if you stay tuned for more coverage from 6.5. I'm your host, Keith Townsend, and for my co-host, Dave Nicholson, stay tuned for more coverage. This is 6.5.
6.5. 6.5.
6.5.
6.5.
6.5.
6.5. 6.5.
We're here on the road.
The 6.5 is here in the booth.
What we have here is a Gen 5 SSD.
It's
It's really about all the work that we've done.
We are here at GTC.
Mobile World Congress.
IBM Think.
Welcome to Davos.
When we think about the role technology plays in the world, it is the fulcrum that's driving progress in every field.
6th Annual 6.5 Summit is on.
This is one of the most chaotic moments in history.
Yeah, I agree, Dan. And chaos loves analysts.
Welcome back, everybody. We are the 6.5.
Daniel Newman of Futurum.
Patrick Moorhead.
Patrick Moorhead, he is the CEO at More Insights and Strategy.
Decode, where we go in and pick apart the biggest news of the week. Bulls and bears. We're going to break down market inflections, technology's top voices. You won't hear this anywhere else.
Make this deal happen.
Cash flow positive.
Is this Armageddon?
Market madness.
Don't you love when we ramble on? We're so entertaining.
Are you not entertained?
Not entertained.
This is 6.5.
6.5. 6.5.
6.5.
6.5.
6.5.
6.5. 6.5.
We're here on the road.
The 6.5 is here in the booth.
What we have here is a Gen 5 SSD.
It's really about all the work that we've done.
We are here at GTC.
Mobile World Congress.
IBM Think.
Welcome to Davos.
When we think about the role technology plays in the world, it is the fulcrum that's driving progress in every field.
6th Annual 6.5 Summit is on.
This is one of the most chaotic moments in history.
Yeah, I agree, Dan. And chaos loves analysts.
Welcome back, everybody. We are the 6.5.
Daniel Newman of Futurum.
Patrick Moorhead.
Patrick Moorhead, he is the CEO at More Insights and Strategy.
Decode, where we go in and pick apart the biggest news of the week. Bulls and bears. We're going to break down market inflections, technology's top voices. You won't hear this anywhere else.
Make this deal happen.
Cash flow positive.
Is this Armageddon?
Market madness.
Don't you love when we ramble on? We're so entertaining.
Are you not entertained?
Not entertained.
HPE Discover Las Vegas 2025. This is a wild combination of folks. I have with me my co-host David Nicholson, who you've seen, but Diana Blass, host of Connected on 6.5. I've never interviewed you.
I know, it's weird. It's weird being on this side.
Yeah, this is going to be our challenge. You challenged me and Dave to see if we can break, we can make you break the fourth wall.
Oh.
And we're on it for today. You've been roaming the show floor. First off, tell us, what is Connected?
Okay, great. That's a great segue here because Connected really takes a lot of the big trends we're seeing at shows and puts them into perspective on how those trends are coming to life. So here we're hearing a ton about AI, of course, AI in the enterprise. And so from my view, Connected is a docu-series. So I go around and interview those on the show floor, many of the times executives, and I'm seeing, okay, well, how is everything we're hearing in the keynote today coming to life in manufacturing, in healthcare, in the seas, in our waters? And it's fascinating for me to really digest the key trends and what the takeaways are for any kind of audience out there.
So, what has been one of the more interesting things you've seen as you walk the show floor?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always looking for things that are super visual. For me, the end outcomes, many times you see a lot of screens. So when I see a fish tank, I'm like, okay, I gotta check that out. I wanna swim with the fishes. In this case, you're connected with the fishes. There's an antenna underwater, and with your QR code, you can
We
connect.
see what you did there. Connected, okay, yeah.
That's true. I mean, that's what I mean about connected.
Yes,
you really are one with the fishes in this case. But you get to better understand, the data underwater, and it showcases how you can connect today with the networking everywhere, especially as more data is living at the edge. So whether it's in a fish tank or you're on the top of a mountain, the HPE in this case is bringing connectivity anywhere.
So in your series, and I'm a big fan.
Thank you.
It isn't just enterprise tech that you've dealt with in your career. And so, what are the key elements of a good story? You talked about visuals. In fact, I've seen work you've done, say, at the Consumer Electronics Show. You've got little robots and cool gizmos and everything. Like you say, you walk around a show like this, and it's a lot of screens and booths, and maybe not a lot of exciting visuals. What are the things that you look for, the elements of a good story? How do you make a good story out of something that is, let's be honest, fundamentally not exciting?
No, but it really is when you focus in on just how much tech is changing our life. And for me, I'm always looking at how it's going to change even my own life, right? And so that's something that's always fascinated me with tech. I was initially a general assignment reporter and then covered politics briefly. And I think tech touches every industry and every part of our lives. And that's what's so fascinating to me, to think about how with healthcare it's being transformed, and manufacturing and the way we drive. I mean, seeing the robo-taxis in Austin the other day by Tesla, it's changing the way we live, and what's really fascinating is it's changing with AI in a way that we're not even noticing how dependent we're becoming on it.
So you watched the keynote this morning, you've walked the floor. What are you screaming to the top of your storyteller lungs? They're missing this important piece. Like I've seen changes in the consumer side of the tech, and this is what they're missing, telling this important part of the story, the important work these folks are doing.
You mean what the keynote is missing? Or
either the keynote or some of the storytellers on the floor.
You're a storyteller. Yeah. If you had to advise the storytellers who are telling a story here.
Yeah, well, first of all, I have to say the keynote was pretty awesome at the Sphere. I love the way our seats shook as, different moments. I've never been in the Sphere before, so it was really remarkable to see that keynote, especially since we go to so many. For me, since we go to a lot of these conferences, a lot of these shows focus on the same topics. They're always about bringing AI into the enterprise, and these are the key challenges, and here's how we're changing it. For me, I love the use cases, hearing about how Carnival's using the networking to enhance the customer experience, connectivity at sea in the most remote place, St. Jude's Hospital changing the research. I want to hear more, though, more outcomes, because it could seem like so much hype, And I think we really need to cut through that hype to prove to everybody that this is something we should pay attention to, start to get our hands dirty with AI, because those who don't, we keep hearing, are going to be left behind. But you get so caught up in the buzz and the terms that it's not always digestible to every person.
I have a suggestion for you. You can steal this. This is my line, but I'm giving it to you.
I really appreciate that.
I think you should make a show. AI, WTF, question mark, by Diana Blass. I think that would be good. And then you go and find, to your point, find those stories that are the real use case stories. Keith and I work with people every day who are trying to sort this out. Where do I start? How do I make money and or save money? What's real? What isn't real?
Right, and what's the real need out there?
Yeah.
How are people using it? Because many people I talk to don't really want robots in their homes. I mean, I'm sure we'll get
Who? Who do you know? Who do you know that doesn't want a robot in their home?
Why wouldn't I want a super powerful,
This is a generational
autonomous
thing? Are you kidding me?
I don't know, I just envision my dog barking all the time at the robot, and it sounds chaotic.
You start them on Roombas. You start your dog on a Roomba.
Okay,
That's
see,
how,
this is what I learn here. This is why I like coming to conferences, because I get tips like that.
Yeah.
So thank you.
So, but leaning into Dave's question, people, you get to connect with people. You know, we sit here all day talking to executives, understanding
They're
their
people
products.
too. What are you talking about?
Well, okay,
Those are
Dave.
people.
They are people.
I get
Okay.
to be
But
interesting.
they're people who are kind of they're media trained. They're
Exactly.
focused on getting out the
They're
message.
talking in sound bites.
Exactly. And you get to talk, you get to be amongst the people. What have been some of the more interesting stories you've walked into?
Okay, I mean, this is super interesting, and it's not something I would film on camera, but before I start the interview, I always talk to people off camera, and I hear about the solution, and you might notice there are some robots over there playing soccer. And what happens inside here is that the network isn't always super powerful to enable the robots to work at full speed, and the lighting isn't optimal for the sensors. But I'm hearing about how these soccer robots, football robots, depending upon where we're based, they compete. And they're champions, and they lost against Texas, I heard, but they actually are so competitive that some of them have lost like robot limbs. Yeah. So that was fascinating to me, just to hear about how the robots interact with one another, and just to the fun side of it, I guess, to hear just about the competitive nature of the robots. What else have I learned? I've learned that there are sectors here that still, like manufacturing, we keep hearing as one of the top areas for AI. But at the same time, there are some oil refineries that don't even have connectivity. So, you know, it's not as fast in some spaces as we think. We're car manufacturing, that's a much easier area to deploy.
Yeah, loss of limbs, always fun. Always fun. Now we know why you are not interested in having these robots in your house immediately.
Yes, exactly.
Or you can dial down the competitiveness setting, maybe. How does this compare with other things that you cover? Is there a common thread between, I mean, you do stuff in like the food sector.
Yes, yeah, but that's where tech also plays a role. So that's what is so great to me about technology, is that it's just changing every industry, changing restaurants. We've heard about ghost kitchens, where they take over spaces and they autonomously run all the operations. And then just the more of the drive-throughs incorporating AI and voice technology. So it's really fascinating to me just how many industries are changing, and even politics, to see the investment being made by, especially now with President Trump, the largest military budget ever, and a lot of that going towards AI. And at the same time, you see the former executives at tech companies moving over to the military. So that's what I love about technology. It's literally changing every industry, and there are threads everywhere.
So we get to see the headlines on Amazon cut X number of jobs from the use of AI. Are you seeing those stories in other industries, kind of the less positive light of AI?
I mean, nobody wants to talk about that.
No one does, but we do.
Nobody wants to. Yeah, I know. No, I mean, those aren't stories that I'm covering.
Right.
I'm covering more like, feature stories, the changes happening. But you're right, that is a big change, and it does deserve a spotlight. From where I sit, I think it requires upskilling, and we will all be working at our greatest potential as AI infiltrates more industries. So I think it's, as we've been hearing all along now, like evolve or get left behind.
So with that feature, follow on is, as we look at kind of the features, as you're talking to industry after industry, what are industries excited about when it comes to AI or any other part of the technology that you've covered?
I think they're excited about being cool. I think many companies just want to say that they're using AI in some way. I also think obviously there are some cost savings efficiencies, but there's a lot of costs going into deploying AI. So I think right now it's like a cool factor to have that AI solution to brag about.
When we talk about industries, and this is HP Enterprise, you're involved in an industry. You're a content creator, and editor, and storyteller extraordinaire. Keep heaping praise on it.
Yeah, thank you.
But what are you, when you're sitting through an HPE Enterprise keynote, what are you thinking about in terms of how you can leverage AI in your business? And are you leveraging AI in what you do? And what are you doing?
I mean, I'm all for it because I'm a small business, and so for me, to be able to do more faster without having to find the talent necessarily really helps me because I do so much myself. And how am I using it? I use it to help me. I have my interviews that are each 20 minutes long, and that's at least, and so that's a lot of footage to sort through. So what I do is I transcribe the interviews, I then put into ChatGPT, and I say, hey, can you summarize all this for me? And then through that summary, I can understand the key themes that came out of an event or a show. There are other platforms that can edit down shorts and cuts, but that's really how I notice how I still play a big role here. Then it's because they're just basically taking chunks. They can't really understand how to piece different parts of a story together. They can't use footage you shot on here and put it over. They more so generate images, which I also use it for, because when you're here, you can see there's not much inferencing B-roll to be had. So it helps me a ton, and I'm actually excited about it.
Keith and I can actually do an interpretive dance that shows symbolically what inferencing is.
Oh, okay,
I didn't know if you know that. We've been working on it for a long time. But for you, tell me if I'm wrong, but it seems like intuitively, when they talk about the kinds of efficiency advances that can be had in the enterprise, you've experienced these things at sort of a micro level, so it's believable to you. It doesn't, whether there's a bit of a gap between vision and execution in terms of where we are, fundamentally, you believe that AI can drive these efficiencies because you're living it, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, in many ways, I use it like a Google because I'm just searching for answers, but it goes a step further and it helps me to analyze. And perhaps I rely on it too much for even just meal plans. I'm like, hey, here's what I ate today. Does that sound about right for my goals? And it breaks it down and helps me better understand if I'm getting the nutrients I need. So I think it's an amazing thing to incorporate into your life. What I hesitate is when people use it and don't use any other brain function, which I don't know if they do. I don't know many people who copy and paste their response from ChatGPT and send it to a client. But it many times gets facts wrong. It makes things up all the time. If I don't tell it not to change my sound bites, it will change it and make it up. So you have to be on top of it. But I think of it as a direct report that you still have to manage. So I think it's exciting where we are. But I also think the conversations at these shows are so far ahead, it's hard to really understand the transformations that are actually happening right now.
Diana, I really enjoyed interviewing you for a chance.
I survived.
For a change. Yeah, you've gotten to interview me a couple of times, and it's really funny because I'm quite tall.
Yes, that's always the
And you're always doing your interviews standing up.
You let the secret out that I'm short.
We couldn't break you, so we had to at least
it's okay. Secret's
get something in. For my co-host, Dave Nicholson, our guest, Diana, thank you for tuning in to this part of the coverage. We have way more coverage coming. Stay tuned for more. This is 6'5".
6'5". 6'5".
6'5".
6'5".
6'5".
6'5".
6'5". We're here on the road. The 6'5 is here in the booth.
What we have here is a Gen 5 SSD.
It's really about all the work that we've done.
We are here at GTC.
Mobile World Congress.
IBM Think.
Welcome to Davos.
When we think about the role technology plays in the world, it is the fulcrum that's driving progress in every field.
6th Annual 6'5 Summit is on.
This is one of the most chaotic moments in history.
Yeah, I agree, Dan. And chaos loves analysts.
Welcome back, everybody. We are the 6'5".
Daniel Newman.
Daniel Newman of Futurum.
Patrick Moorhead.
Patrick Moorhead. He is the CEO at More Insights and Strategy.
Decode, where we go in and pick apart the biggest news of the week. Bulls and bears. We're going to break down market inflections, technology's top voices. You won't hear this anywhere else.
Make this deal happen.
Catch flow positive.
Is this Armageddon?
Market madness.
Don't you love when we ramble on? We're so entertaining.
Are you not entertained?
Not entertained.
Welcome to 6'5 on the road live here at HPE Discover Las Vegas 2025. I'm Dave Nicholson and I am bookended by the Townsends, Will and Keith.
Yeah.
How are you gentlemen doing?
I'm doing great, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Well, talk to us about the keynote.
Yeah.
Networking was a big theme. What was different this year from previous years? Give us your assessment of
Well,
what we heard this morning.
Shocking, agentic, right? So one of the big announcements was Aruba and its agentic AI mesh. Over 15 agents that are going to do a number of different things to facilitate root cause, troubleshoot, diagnose issues, and ultimately remediate them, all with automation. Really big. I do like the emphasis that HPE is playing on the importance of networking. Often that gets lost in the compute and in the storage piece, but at the end of the day, if you can't move that data around, you can't train it, you can't inference off of it.
Right, often ignored networking. Keith, what are you thinking?
So I think he gave a lot of love to networking in general. I was actually surprised. I don't think I remember a HPE Discover in recent memory that wasn't keynoted kind of by Aruba, giving the vision for networking and it getting elevated to the CEO level, to Antonio's level. But observability was another big point. And I think outside of storage, I haven't heard HPE talk about observability at all.
No, Keith, it's a good point. The company hasn't focused on it traditionally, although it did acquire OpsRamp, and it's been quickly integrating OpsRamp into the entire tech stack, and that includes networking as well. I'm quite impressed with OpsRamp. I've spent time with the team recently. Gratuitous plug. I did a webinar with the team a few months ago. I also wrote something on the More Insights and Strategy website. But at a very high level, observability is very important. Providing visibility into the estate of devices that are on a network, not only Aruba, but also multi-vendor as well. And the real advantage in doing that is twofold in my opinion. One, it provides a higher level of network assurance so that you can make networks more resilient, You can understand faults, find gaps of visibility and that sort of thing. It also improves security posture as well, because again, it identifies those weaker areas of the network, and I really like what the company is doing with that ops ramp integration.
You talk about security. Zero trust is something we talk about from a security perspective.
Absolutely.
First, I would like to coin a phrase just
Okay.
between the three of us. Can we agree that secret agentic would be cool?
That would be really cool.
Okay.
Secret agentic.
Almost secret
That is,
agentic.
Exactly.
That's dead level. That's dead level.
So on the subject of secret agentic, but
Yeah.
zero trust, with HPE Aruba, what does that look like?
Well, I mean, it's nothing new for the Aruba team. I mean, they've been focused on least privilege access for many, many years. This dates back to its AI ops. They launched something called the Edge Services Platform. I actually wrote a paper about that many years ago. But what I like to tell people is the fact that fabrics are becoming sexy again, to quote Justin Timberlake. And what a fabric is, it's taking networking, it's integrating security into it. And when you do that inherently, it is more secure by nature when that is done. And then, from my perspective also, cybersecurity is a layered approach. You're gonna have endpoint security, you're gonna have security within the infrastructure stack. SASE is basically SD-WAN with additional security controls. So at the end of the day, long way to answer your question, Dave, but it's nothing that's new to Aruba. But what I really like is the focus, especially with what we heard today about Green Lake Intelligence and what the company is doing to sort of drive that cloud natively through the entire stack.
So wait, what's the term for that again? You said least what?
Least privileged access.
Least privileged access. It sounds like no soup for you. That's what
you
I
could
hear.
interpret it that way.
That's what I hear as an end user.
So, following on, kind of pulling on that thread, we heard in the analyst session the other day and from the stage yesterday, Antonio talked about kind of the future of security and networking. Where are you seeing those worlds come together this week from the keynote?
Well, I mean, it's that conversion story that I was just talking about, the fabrics, right? And so you're continuing to see that convergence. And I think the other thing that's happening as well, at least from a security perspective within organizations, is the need to consolidate. Tool sprawl is out of control. The stats are alarming. An average mid-market size company is managing 40 to 50 point solutions from a security standpoint. If you're a larger multinational footprint, it can be in the hundreds. And so there's all this discussion around platformization. That really rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? But it's the whole notion of consolidating tool sets, again, integrating that into the network fabric. One of the things that I don't believe HPE gets credit for is that they were actually the first to launch a smart switch with the CX-10000. That was in 2022. You've seen competitors launch similar products. What a smart switch is basically it takes DPU functionality. In the case of HPE, it's AMD Pensando. And when you do that, it allows you to embed security services like firewalls. And that's something that Antonio did talk about earlier this week. There's almost an opportunity to eliminate the traditional firewall, because now you can embed virtual firewalls into switches and into network fabrics as well. So, yeah.
So you actually just led into, I think, my next question, which is, how is this all enabling the intelligent, what we called, just a couple of years ago, the intelligent edge? Applications are getting smarter.
Right.
That intelligence is being pushed out to the edge. How is networking enabling that?
Well, again, to support these AI workloads, you need very predictable performance. You can't have spikes. You can't have outages, because that totally wrecks like an agentic AI workflow, as an example. With generative AI, that is manageable. But in an agentic world, it's not manageable. So number one, that's important. And I think the other thing that you're beginning to see with switches and even with access points, the compute infrastructure is coming to these edge devices. So, Snapdragon, Qualcomm Snapdragon, they're doing XPUs in very, very small ASIC packages. And so that allows you to do things like inferencing on an access point. Now, we're not seeing that yet, but that's going to be coming, by my prediction, very, very soon. And so that's what's making networking intelligence, is you're putting compute, within the network infrastructure layer to unlock new use cases like I just described.
Yeah, a lot was said about networking, and it makes perfect sense. And I know we sometimes think of networking as the unsung hero.
Yeah.
Obviously, data is at the center of all of this, and if you can't network this data together and access this data, access the knowledge,
it doesn't work.
You're dead in the water.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back to the top of the keynote.
Okay.
One word: ambition.
Right.
So sometimes these things can be dismissed as marketing propaganda, nonsense. I really took that to heart because I have a lot of folks that Keith and I talk to on a daily basis who are asking, where do I start?
Sure.
Where do I start with AI? How do I make money? How do I save money with AI? And the funny thing is, you can say it has to start with ambition.
Right.
Ambition equaling, I would argue, what are you trying to solve for?
Yeah.
What's the opportunity you're trying to pursue? Sure. We've all heard global systems integrators say that they are different because they don't talk about tools.
They talk about outcomes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I really thought that the whole idea of things starting with ambition was clever.
Yeah.
And that's a really good place to start from.
Yeah.
But overall, what kind of grade would you give the extravaganza in the Sphere?
I got to tell you, so this is the second year. So I was here last year, and HPE was the first company to do a keynote in the Sphere. So they've had a year to hone it, refine it. I was blown away. I just came out of a Q&A with Antonio, and he was talking about how a lot of that imagery that we saw today was AI generated, and the fidelity on that was incredible. The waterfall at the very, very beginning was unbelievable. But I love the fact, Dave, that you brought up ambition, and it was almost the way that Antonio dropped the mic when he exited the stage. And for me, the most impactful story and use case was St. Jude's Hospital, and how they're leaning into HPE compute, HPE networking, HPE storage to save children from cancer. So for me, that was the mic drop moment.
Yeah, amazing. What do you think overall? Were you the subject of ambition, or just overall the messaging you're seeing?
So overall, I think HPE has solidified its messaging really around observability management, this multi-vendor, because they didn't just talk about it in networking, they talked about it in compute, managing other compute, orchestrating clouds. They're really trying to be this centralized point to come to for your hybrid infrastructure. So whether you're, you have 15-year-old Gen 8 servers, or if you have the latest Gen 12 servers along with the latest Aruba networking, Ops Ramp, and this GreenLake intelligence platform is the platform to come manage you at and manage it. And I agree with you. They're taking a lot of the key.
Yeah.
A lot of this is core Aruba technology.
It is.
Yeah. Well, Will, if you had to leave someone with one takeaway, what's the TLDR on what IT leaders should think from a networking perspective that's coming out of this?
Don't assume that your plumbing is going to be adequate to support your needs in the immediate future. Generative AI has been transformative with co-pilots and that sort of thing. Agentic is really going to unlock the promise of automation at scale. You're going to need smart, intelligent, very fat pipes to do that. And so as IT decision makers are budgeting for that compute infrastructure, make sure that you also budget commensurately for that networking infrastructure.
Yeah, it makes sense. Well, I think it's fair to say that networking has always been cool, at least according to us. We're not cool, but we've always thought it was cool. But networking got a little attention that it absolutely deserved in the keynote today, and HPE is all over it. For 6.5 Live, 6.5 on the road live, here at HPE Discover Las Vegas 2025. I'm Dave Nicholson for Keith Townsend and Will Townsend. Stay tuned for more.
This is 6.5.
6.5. 6.5.
6'5".
6.5.
6.5.
6.5. 6.5.
We're here on the road. The 6.5 is here in the booth.
What we have here is a Gen 5 SSD.
really about all the work that we've done.
We are here at GTC.
Mobile World Congress.
IBM Think. Welcome to Davos.
When we think about the role technology plays in the world, it is the fulcrum that's driving progress in every field.
6th annual 6.5 Summit is on.
This is one of the most chaotic moments in history.
Yeah, I agree, Dan. And chaos loves analysts.
Welcome back, everybody. We are the 6.5.
Daniel Newman of Futurum.
Patrick Moorhead.
Patrick Moorhead, he is the CEO at More Insights and Strategy.
We code, where we go in and pick apart the biggest news of the week. Bulls and bears. We're going to break down market inflections, technology's top voices. You won't hear this anywhere else.
Make this deal happen.
Cash flow positive.
Is this Armageddon? Market madness. Don't you love when we ramble on? We're so entertaining.
Are you not entertained?
Not entertained.
HPE Discover Las Vegas 2025. Dave Nicholson, Matt Kimball, VP and Principal Analyst Data Center at More Insights.
That sounds impressive, yeah.
Very
Who
impressive.
is that guy?
Very impressive.
Yeah. More impressive. Welcome to the Hybrid Cloud Show at the HPE Discover.
And I'm surrounded by geniuses and
We're going to play
incredible talent
Matt,
here.
we're going to play Stump the Chump here.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm the chump, so all right.
That's an honor. That's an honor.
So, Matt, first off, you said it in the warm-up, the Great VM Reset.
The Great VM Reset, yeah. Antonio brought that up in his keynote. So I'll ask, kind of throw this out, see if you all agree with me. So,
No, we're interviewing you, Matt.
you caught on to my tech. So it's interesting to me, right? And Keith, we've talked about this at other conferences and in the past as well. There's all this turmoil going on in the market, right? You've got this company, I don't know if your viewers know that VMware got acquired by Broadcom.
Oh.
I know, who would have thunk, right?
They talked about another hypervisor company. Do you think that was who Antonio was referring to?
No, I think you're mistaken, Matt. He was referring to traditional hypervisors.
Oh, that's right, traditional. Yeah.
Trad hype, for short.
TH. Yeah, and there's a lot of turmoil. And it's funny, we were in a roundtable discussion just yesterday, talking to a lot of CIOs, IT directors, who's using VMware, who's considering or exploring options. Every single hand went up, right? It's cost, it's cost, and it's uncertainty. It's long-term, where's this thing go? And it's proprietary, right? Everything is closed off. What IT is looking for is that more open virtualization solution, a virtualization solution that's not going to be deployed at the cost of other technologies across the enterprise, and a virtualization solution and a cloud solution that you can grow with. And so that's where I think HPE is coming in, and where Antonio's coming in with the Great VM Reset. Everybody is looking for an alternative. Do you want me to keep going, or you guys want to jump in?
No. I think I just wonder. A kind of jokingly, I've said a few times that if you're a CIO and your CEO asks you what your AI strategy is, and you say, I think I'm going to switch hypervisors, you're fired, okay? Because that's, you know, that's below the line in terms of what anybody cares about. So I think if HPE is going to lead with, it's the great VM reset, forget about that.
Yeah, sure.
It's good messaging to say that they have a solution for that.
Yep.
I think that's going to come along with people focusing on AI and hybrid cloud, the ability to do things like run inference on premises and stuff like that. So maybe it's a little nuance to it.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people it's going to capture. And yeah, everybody says they want to move.
Yeah.
But the numbers show that not as many have as both of us would have agreed would have happened by now.
Well, I think there's a counter to that, and that is I am an enterprise IT organization. I have 20,000 VMs supporting my business. I have built muscle memory around this thing that has become the control plane for my data center, and there is no way I can move off of that thing in 6 months' time. It is a longer term project. So I am going to extend a license here, and I'm going to plan and execute a migration strategy over here. Here's the thing, and this ties into AI. Before you can do anything, this is Matt Kimball's opinion, right? Not others. I think before you as an enterprise can even think about AI, you've got to think about modernizing your organization, your enterprise, and your IT operations. There's three parts to that. There's people, there's process or operations, and there's product, there's technology, and they're all intertwined. People is the long tent in the pole, right? It's cultural, it's education, it's everything. But that starts in product, right? And product influences operations, and operations influences people. So I think there are three legs to that stool, but I think before you can even get to AI, you got to start thinking about your organization from a modernization perspective, and that's where hybrid cloud comes in. Hybrid cloud, by the way, let's remember, AI is not the only workload in the data center, right? It is one of many, many workloads that exist. And yes, I want to make it easier to deploy and activate or operationalize AI across my organization. But I also want to support every other function that's going on, and I want to reduce cost, I want to reduce power, and I want to be able to take all of that excess and put it to the higher value projects, such as, you know, how I deploy agentic AI for this workflow, or generative AI for this chatbot, or whatever it might be.
So you were just clapping in the background for that.
Thank you.
For that take, Matt. One of the things I like to console CIOs, CTOs, architects on is not changing too much at one time.
Sure.
You want to fail any project, I don't care if you're talking about AI, ERP, really doesn't matter. Too much change in the enterprise at one time will lead to failure.
Yep.
So as people are looking at the big VM reset, they're looking at hybrid cloud adoption from a people and process perspective. They're looking at AI governance and adopting AI. How are you looking at this yarn of problem is saying enterprise leaders and enterprise vendors should focus on X? What is X?
Yeah, so outcomes. For me, and I go back to when I was in IT, and I was never a good practitioner, so I kind of failed upward, and I became a very good executive, but not a good practitioner. But my mantra was always start at the, I think I mentioned this in our pre-show, start at the right and work left, right? What are your outcomes? What are you trying to achieve? And work back from there.
Which by the way, headline HPE, they call that ambition. What is your ambition?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. What is, yes.
It's critically important. I'm sorry.
No, that's great. Work backwards, and to what you're saying, Keith, you got to break that down into smaller consumable bites that fail fast, right? And fail fiercely, right? Don't be afraid to fail, but you have to engage. You have to embark on these projects in a way where when those mistakes happen, and they're going to happen, they happen in every IT project I've been part of, right? Failure happens. It's not bringing down your ERP system. It's not bringing down the mission critical apps and workloads that are powering your enterprise, right? So think small, look for those early victories. Map it out. I always say there are two kind of vectors. There's visibility and there's import to the company, right? There's the stuff that every executive's got their eyes on, and then there's the stuff that really matters to the company. Find that right balance where it's gonna have the right amount of eyes on it, but it's not gonna bring the company to the knees or your organization to its knees, when those failures happen. That way you get those early wins. Because you've been in IT, or IT consulting, right? Here's what happens. You start these projects, 6 months later, funding goes away, right? I mean, it's probably happened in your life, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I owned a landscaping company until 2 weeks ago. So I'm not even sure what I'm doing here. I'm not even sure what I'm doing here. But hybrid cloud has had a history.
Sure.
I would argue, and coming from the infrastructure side of things, we started talking about hybrid cloud because we were terrified of cloud
Sure.
killing us.
Yeah.
And so we said, hold on a second. Yeah, I know we called that a science project, take your toys, stay away from it. Now we admit it's ready for some of your enterprise workloads, but at least let us have some.
Yeah.
At least long enough for us to retire, maybe.
Yeah, sure.
That was the hope.
Yeah.
And I'd say there were some dark days of hybrid cloud where we talked about things like cloud bursting. Hey, on the 11th of every month, let's move a petabyte of data into the cloud. And it's like, no, that's never going to happen. And
I'm old enough to remember HP, now HPE bought Eucalyptus.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So now here we are, jump forward, and oh my, hybrid cloud makes a lot of sense. Not for the least of reasons, because people are concerned that their crown jewels, their data, they just got over the idea that storing their data in the cloud was actually safer than in their own data center.
Sure, yeah.
Because psychologically that doesn't make sense, but then it's like, okay, yeah, I admit it. Google or whoever is better at storing my data than I am.
Yeah.
But inferencing it, training a model with it, no way.
Right.
So people want to do that on premises. Therefore, on-premises stuff remains, yet people are already sold on the benefits of cloud. So hybrid cloud, here to stay. Keith knew it forever.
Yeah.
But almost by happenstance. So against that backdrop.
Kind of the killer app, if you will, right?
I believe it is. I believe it is. Against that backdrop, do you think that's enough of an incentive to get leaders in a company to allow IT leaders in the company to do technology refresh at the infrastructure level, which we all know prepares you for AI, but it doesn't look like AI on day one.
Right.
And is it a fair argument to say that if they do that, they'll free up capital to do the shiny object AI stuff? Do you see that resonating as a valid argument?
It's an absolutely valid argument. The question is this: is it possible for Keith Townsend, CIO extraordinaire, or IT director, to convince the C-suite that is a worthwhile investment? It's the absolute necessity to get to that end state, that kind of nirvana, which is agentic AI is running the enterprise and everybody's just sitting around and drinking lemonade and eating oatmeal cookies and saying life is great, right? The question is, how do you get there, and how do you convince executives? This goes back to, and this is part of the problem. We've spent forever, and I was an IT vendor, I was on the IT vendor side as well. We spent forever talking about TCO, talking about ROI, talking about these savings that will be realized, we promise, that we never go back and validate or never go back and quantify after the fact, right? So I think there's a little skepticism that goes along with going to a board that's kind of controlling, a governance control board that is looking at IT expenses and operations or projects and saying, yay, verily, move forward or don't, right? That's part of the challenges. Some of the ways that I would sell IT projects in the past were on the early side, and we never went back and proved them. So when you say, I'm going to save you X percent of dollars by doing this project, people look at it with skepticism. But there are real hard savings, or by hard, I don't mean difficult, I mean concrete savings that you achieve. When you look at IT infrastructure, in that roundtable we were at yesterday, there's a gentleman who has a bunch of HPE servers. They're between 5 and 8 years old. He's getting ready to refresh them, and he's saying, we're going to do a 12-to-1 consolidation ratio. Holy heck, how much capital does that save me?
Yeah.
How much from licensing is that going to save me if I'm using HPE virtualization stack? How much is that going to save on power and cooling? I mean, there are a lot of elements that go into this that are real concrete, and I think it's more demonstrable today than maybe it has been in the past. So I think you've got to build that package and go to, in Florida we call it the technology review work group. Go to the TRW, and you got to sell the stuff, and and it helps to have the vendor behind you with those numbers. I think HPE actually today did a great job of showing what those savings could be.
Yeah, one of my more popular takes has been this blue money versus green money. Like when a vendor comes into your office and says we'll save you $100,000, and I go to my CFO and I say we saved $100,000, she's going to say, well, did you release those funds back to me? And if you did not save me $100,000.
Yeah.
And this is the great debate. We are challenged. Some of the same people who are going to be implementing the big VM reset are the same people doing my AI projects.
Yes.
And we could go on for easily the rest of the show talking about this problem.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is the problem. We talked to your colleague, Will Townsend, about networking, which is the glue to all of this. But we've run out of time.
You're kidding me.
The clock is telling me.
Leave him wanting more.
So we did not stump the chump.
No, you
did not. We built it.
So for my co-host, Dave Nicholson, Matt, thank you for joining us. Fabulous conversation as always. Folks, you got a sneak peek on the types of conversations that the three of us have all the time. We're going to continue these conversations. Stay tuned for more 6.5 coverage.